Good afternoon. We've been working diligently over the past several months to pass a budget. The reality is we're very close, but we're still not there yet, and that's why we recessed for today, ready to begin again on Monday. We're going to keep working, and we're going to keep collaborating with alders to pass a balanced budget before the end of the year. We have been in very fruitful conversations and making some good progress. We're not going to stop doing that. I am still very optimistic that we will pass a balanced budget before the end of the year that keeps our city up and running and does not cut vital city services, and of course we continue to invest in people. And with that, I'm open to questions.
There will be one question, one follow-up.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
The alders tell me that they need to see more efficiencies for this to pass, and they need to see bridge building and relationship repair for it to pass. Are you going to be working on talking to those whose relationships you need to repair over the weekend? And where might you be willing to make more cuts?
Well, there are many ideas that are still coming in. We're reviewing all of them. This process from the very beginning has purpose to collaborate and bring people together. I'm very grateful that our alders have leaned in a very fantastic way to build a budget that is balanced, that speaks to the values of the people of the city of Chicago. And so absolutely we're going to work throughout the weekend to come back with a full proposal that, one, makes those critical investments that the people of Chicago want us to make, but two, that we respond to the structural damage that we've inherited over the course of just decades of practices that were not useful, quite frankly, for the people of Chicago. And then, of course, I'm open to ideas where efficiencies can be drawn so that, again, we make sure that government is showing up in the most pristine ways possible. So we're going to work hard this weekend to do just that.
Which areas are you will you look
again,
at those
we're
efficiencies?
taking ideas from every direction, and again, as collaborator in chief, I'm very heartened by the engagement from City Council. It's been a very remarkable journey, and I'm very encouraged by it.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, you're right. Some aldermen say that they're not going to support any hike on property taxes. Do you think you can have a budget that doesn't have any kind of hike on property taxes?
Well, as I said from the very beginning, this is about investing in critical services, and people of Chicago want to see us do that, and this budget certainly reflects that. From the very beginning, I said that, we didn't, want to draw, into a situation where we would raise property taxes. Unfortunately, certain measures that were eliminated from our budget, like the PPRT, for instance, which was conservatively $160 million. The expiration of that particular tax certainly made this dynamic a little harder to achieve. However, as I've said repeatedly, if you're asking me if I'm open to ideas that could draw us down to a point where there's no raise in property taxes, all of those ideas are welcome.
Off topic, what is your reaction to Tom Homan comments saying that the massive deportations will start here in Chicago?
Well, as I said from the very beginning, my responsibility in this moment is to invest and protect people. And we're going to continue to invest in people and protect people. We're going to protect people who see public education as a human right. We're going to protect people, of course, who are here, who have migrated or immigrated here to this city. We're going to protect people who believe in public housing. That's something else that this incoming administration has threatened. So whether it's education, whether it's immigration, whether it's housing, whether it's environment, all of the things that this current incoming administration has threatened, I'm going to continue to protect people of this city, working people, and we're going to continue to invest in them. Thank you for that question.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor.
Good afternoon.
A group of aldermen held a news conference shortly after the council session ended, and when we brought up the phrase collaborator-in-chief, they didn't take it seriously. They don't think you've done enough to reach across the council chamber to accept the changes that they are offering. One of the ideas that came up earlier in the day was to permanently eliminate the vacant police positions. How do you stand on that, and do you think you've done enough to reach out to the council members who say that with your help, they could easily come up with a budget?
Our team is working hard to work with every single alder, as well as other stakeholders, right? It's alders, it's other interest groups, it's labor. We have worked, around the clock, essentially, to bring people together. And that process will continue over the weekend. And, what I can say is that I know that alders Beal and Riley have proposed dialing back on keeping open these police vacancies, services in which people are anticipating if those services, if we're paying for services that individuals are not getting, I understand why Alderman Beal and Alderman Riley have brought that forward. It's a solution that we're willing to consider.
Would you sign off on a budget that does not include a $68 million property tax increase?
Well, again, what I've said from the very beginning, that I'm committed to making sure that our budget reflects the values of the people of Chicago. I know the people of Chicago don't want to see cuts to services. And we're going to continue to work through the weekend and accept more ideas that come in throughout this process to ensure that a balanced budget is achieved that reflects the values of the people of Chicago.
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon. I'm sorry, there's just a bunch of stuff going on up here, y'all. They're okay. They're okay. I'm like, what in the world? All right, go ahead. It's all good. I didn't mean to embarrass you all. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. With Monday's meeting being recessed, realistically, with you all working, around the clock throughout the weekend, do you believe that this budget can actually be passed on Monday?
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking me if it's going to be close, yes, it's going to be close, right? If that's what you're asking me, look, I am confident in the alders who have really demonstrated just a remarkable interest and a tenacity, quite frankly, that the people of Chicago should be very proud of. And so that tenacity, along with the full force of my operation to continue to put forth a balanced budget that reflects the values of the people of Chicago, yes, I still remain very much optimistic.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking the questions.
You're welcome.
My question is about what contingency plans the city of Chicago has if the budget is not passed by December 31st. Is there something like the federal government has, like a continuing resolution or some other plan?
So I'm going to turn it over to my budget director. Again, our goal is to ultimately pass a balanced budget that reflects the values of the people of Chicago. We are not Congress, so we don't mint money. If there is no budget by the end of the year, there's no appropriations for services to continue.
Good afternoon, Annette Guzman, Budget Director. The mayor is absolutely right. We don't have continuing appropriation authority. We have a state statute that requires us to pass a budget by the end of this year, including if we are going to levy any property tax, whether it's the existing property tax that we have today, we have to have that in place by the end of this year, or we're not able to do things like pay our debt service, pay our pensions. Okay. And so we need to pass a budget by the end of this year.
One follow-up question for the mayor.
I'll let our CFO expound.
The only item we have a continuing appropriation on is our bond debt service. That is the only item.
Thank you. And Mayor, my follow-up question is, would you be, if there was a need to be a tiebreaker, would you vote to be the tiebreaker if it was a 25-25 vote on the budget? Well,
as you know, I do obviously have that authority within the rules. That is, that does not happen very often. I think it only happened, quite frankly, during the Harold Washington era. What I am encouraged by, though, in this moment is that there are a number of alders who understood the importance of our recess today, because they do recognize that this is an opportunity for us to build that much more confidence in city government, and we're going to work hard this weekend to continue to collaborate to make sure that we have as many votes as possible. The goal is not to get to just a balanced budget. I want as many people to be a part of this experience as possible.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I went the wrong way.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Thank you for taking my
Yeah,
question.
of course, you're welcome.
So some of your progressive allies are hoping to get up to $170 million in CPD cuts in lieu of raising property taxes at all. Is that on the table for you, or is that a non-starter?
Well, again, I know that Alders Beal and Riley have brought forth a potential solution to balancing this budget. It's something that I'm going to consider, like I've considered all of the ideas that have come forward.
Long term, do you think the unique dynamics and tensions of this budget cycle might permanently shift how future budget processes will play out between the fifth floor and City Council, for better or worse?
I think, again, this effort to collaborate and show that much more of an openness to how we balance budgets and how we make sure that these budgets reflect the values of the people of Chicago, that's something that I've said from the very beginning. I'm the first person to admit that the mayor's office, as well as City Council, won't be our grandparents' mayor's office or City Council. I think that's very evident. When you think about how diverse our council is right now, that's a seismic shift. And so I will say it like this, and this is, you could take this however you wish. If you're asking me of whether or not sort of the monolithic sort of approach that has governed city of Chicago for decades is the formation that we'll continue in, that is clearly not the case, right? We're not going to continue along that path. If you're asking me, has this process given us an opportunity to be far more inclusive and inviting for aldermanic review and participation? It certainly has created that opportunity, and that's a good thing for government. That's nothing to be intimidated of. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's really why I believe that my parents intentionally made sure that I was born a middle child. I'm best positioned and suited for that type of collaboration. So that's a message to all my siblings out there as well. Hey, Mark.
Okay, for a little something slightly different. According to the research that the Deep South Press Corps has been conducting over the past few days, we've learned that voting in a Texas election when your primary residence is elsewhere amounts now, since 2023, to felony vote fraud upgraded from misdemeanor. And it's also been suggested to us that voting by mail in that way could also be wire fraud. So what is your game plan, considering that, for your top aide if the election authorities or whoever in Texas and the federal authorities come after him under the Trump administration?
Look, this is, a matter that is being looked into, right? And as that matter continues to unfold, conclusions that come from what is looked into, we'll get a chance to review those conclusions once they're made. In the meantime, I think that it's important to know that, we operate with, a clear understanding that our sole responsibility, continues and has to remain the people of Chicago, and that's what my focus is going to be on.
So the follow-up question then is if it does go south for your top aide, would he be included in standing up to the Trump administration? In that case, just
well, I'm
like
not sure if there's a direct.
I think them for the immigrants.
Yeah, right. No, I don't think I understand the last part, but I think I get it in terms of how this matter ultimately plays out, and what decisions will be made either at the state level or federal level. Again, I'm not going to speculate. I just know that this matter is being looked into, and as conclusions are ultimately drawn, we'll be prepared to respond at that point.
Hey, Mayor.
Hey.
The alders have said that they are hoping for efficiencies in this next budget as a way to balance it, and you've said repeatedly that you are against job cuts. Would you ever change your mind on that if that meant balancing this budget?
Well, look, there seems to be, if you're asking me if I'm okay with people losing their job, no. And I don't know anybody who is, by the way. Now, there are, individuals that have brought, ideas to the forefront, and we're going to look at all of them, I am not interested in no way of, particularly in a season when you have an incoming administration that places a great deal of trepidation and pressure on our economy, and particularly our local economy. These are individuals that provide tree trimming services. These are individuals that, keep our streets safe, right? These are people who show up during emergencies. So, laying off, people of Chicago is not something that I am interested in at all. And as I've made a vow and a commitment to receive all incoming ideas, I will continue to do that.
And then kind of piggybacking on our colleague talking about what happens January 1 if there is no budget passed, in layman's terms, for those who aren't thinking about bonds and pensions, can you explain what government looks like, those services would look like if there's no budget passed?
Yeah, again, the goal is to pass a budget by the end of the year. I know all of our alders are committed to doing that. No one wants to put the people of Chicago in that position, and it's very simple. If we don't have a budget, there's no appropriations line for the services that people rely on. If we're not in a position to pay the workers who help make sure this city runs, those services go away.
Mayor, there's been some discussion among those alders, good afternoon, by the way, saying that some of the things that you've wanted to do, I think they said $50 million to expand some of the programs you already have, like the youth jobs. And I think it was 28 and you wanted to go up to 30, whatever it was. They said, we just can't afford to do those expansions in the services. So is there a willingness on your part to maybe scale back the values when you can't afford and you don't have the money to do everything you'd like to do this year?
Well, as I said, we're going to continue to bring people to the table to offer up ideas, and I can say this, a budget that ensures that our young people are investing in is something that's important to the people of Chicago. I don't think it's a coincidence that in the neighborhood that I live in, the Austin neighborhood, where crime has gone down, a lot of work to be done, I don't think it's a coincidence between 200, new detectives and youth jobs, where the number one neighborhood where young people receive jobs from were from the Austin community. Like, young people having something to do and being able to, earn a paycheck to help support their families, that's an investment in community safety ultimately, right? So we're going to continue to have those discussions. We're going to continue to make sure that we build more affordable homes. I know there are some people who want us to put the brakes or pause on building more affordable homes. I know that people of Chicago want us to build more. We're nearly at 3,600 or over 3,600 already in 18 months. These are investments that people know work. And so we're going to work hard to make sure that, this weekend becomes a real opportunity for us to have it out. Right? And let's have that discussion about what the people of Chicago want to see in this budget and how do we do it in a way that's responsible.
And just follow up procedurally, and maybe somebody from your team can go into the nuts and bolts of this, but if you're coming back from a recess on Monday and the budget gets changed, can that be voted on, or does it have to go back to committees and then come back to council, get DNP? I mean, are we looking at next Friday before there could be a vote?
No, so we can take care of this on Monday. Is Alderman Irvin here? Does he want to, anybody else want to walk through that parliamentary procedure?
We'd love to get an answer on that one.
It's pretty straightforward. Jeff is here. We can do it on Monday. Jeff, why don't you come on up, please?
Sorry, Jeff.
It's okay. It's Jeff. He's very shy. He's not used to being in front of people. He's actually brand new at the job.
Thank you, Mayor. The answer is yes, we can take care of it on Monday. The rules do allow for amendments in real time to the items that are currently sitting in the virtual sideline, so to speak.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
I apologize, but this is a question for your budget director.
Oh, don't apologize. She's very competent and capable.
The finance team has spoken a lot about structural changes during this budget process. This summer, the city projected a $1.12 billion corporate fund deficit for 2026, but that was not reflective of this budget. So if the 2025 budget as it stands today passed, are we still in that billion-dollar neighborhood?
Thank you for the question. No, we wouldn't be in that neighborhood, but we haven't rerun the numbers because a lot of revenues that have come in that have been replacement revenues from the $300 million property tax. Those are dependent upon the economy and how the economy works out. But because of I think right now, the budget that's before City Council is 73% structural, down from the 80 that was presented by the mayor. And so because of those structural changes, we are not in the same place we were when we forecasted the 2026 or even the 2027.
Can you give me a range?
I don't have the range, just given there's a lot that we have to review with all of these new revenues that have been put on the table for City Council to consider that were not originally part of the budget.
And are the ratings agencies satisfied with those structural solutions in this current budget, or is it your understanding that they're still close to a downgrade given all this uncertainty?
Jill, you want to respond to that? Thank you.
Sure. The rating agencies were pretty clear in their reports that a couple of things were very important as far as maintaining the city's credit rating. One of them was continuance of making the supplemental pension payment. But they also said that if this budget was balanced with too much one-time revenues, that would be grounds for a downgrade. The rating agencies did not specify whether they thought that was 20%, 30%, or 40%. And so, we will find out when the budget passes whether the increased use of one-time sources is enough to get the city a downgrade. We certainly hope not, but we don't have a clear answer to that right now. They did not specify that to us.
Hi, Mayor. The sidewalk plowing pilot program, will that be funded through a line item in this budget, and if not, will it be cobbled together, that funding from other sources next year?
Well, again, nothing has been finalized or determined in this budget. These ideas continue to come in, and we're going to explore these ideas throughout the weekend and make a determination how this budget is not just balanced, but what those investments ultimately entail.
And just circling back to the so-called border czar who was here on Monday, what specifically could he do to circumvent some of the sanctuary laws here, and what can you do as mayor to stop that?
Well, I mean, as far as his parameters, I mean, those are elements that I don't think are fully defined. I don't know if this is I don't really know what this position ultimately is. So, I'm not going to, try to prognosticate their authority. What I can say, though, is that we have a clear ordinance. This ordinance, which has been strengthened over time, but its origination is from Mayor Harold Washington, who understood that local law enforcement cooperating with ICE is not just simply about not cooperating. It's requiring local law enforcement to behave as federal agents. That is not how we engender confidence in policing in our communities. And furthermore, I just want to be very clear about this. The incoming administration's threat around immigration is dangerous and irresponsible. And this administration is threatening our economy. The proposal that he has on these tariffs, there are times when my budget director and I look at each other like, boy, when this budget process is over, we have to start having a conversation about the ramifications of tariffs that could have a tremendous detrimental impact on our local economy. That is a threat. President Trump wants to eliminate the Department of Education. That's a real threat to the people of this city. 87% of our public school system is made up of brown and black children. Working people who participate in public accommodations, that's what he's threatening. He doesn't believe in science, right? So his undermining of our efforts for environmental justice is a threat to our economy. It's a threat to our planet. And I guess all I'm simply saying, you all, is if there was just one threat coming from this administration, I could appreciate, this conversation around immigration, and, his view of the Department of Justice and what what he believes the role of the DOJ is, of using the Department of Justice to go after political enemies. I'm just saying, I'm offering to the people of Chicago, I'm going to stand up and protect the people of this city against every threat from this administration. And I hope the rest of the people in this room in the city of Chicago takes his threat as seriously as I do. Undermining public accommodations going after undocumented people, it's a threat to our civility and to our democracy. I think it's a waste of effort and power when we have an opportunity to create more job opportunities for people who are coming out of jails and prison. He could focus there. We just had some young boys who were football champions here, and they represent the South Side very well, the South Side Vikings. And these are young boys who are playing a sport to give them an opportunity to get a free education. That's what he could be fighting for. That's what we're fighting for in the city. It's why enrollment in our community colleges continues to go up. And the number one registrant and enrollee are black young boys, black young men. So, I take his threat seriously, but I can tell you this one thing for sure. I am going to stand up and protect the people of this city, and we're going to invest in the people of this city, and we're not going to allow the incoming administration to continue to sow seeds of division. We're bringing people together, and our budget process is certainly emblematic of that. Thank you for that question.
Hey, Mayor. Alderman Maria Haddon told us after the meeting that she believes it's not just about the property tax anymore or the dollars and cents of the budgets and negotiations, but it's about a lack of trust in the city council, a lack of trust in the city council and your commitments that have been made. To what extent does your leadership style, the leadership style of your staff, play a role in standing between, where we are now and a deal coming together next week?
Well, it's going to take all of us. And there are a number of alders who have really stepped up and shown an enormous amount of brilliance and courage in this moment, and I welcome it. My leadership style is open to that type of collaboration. Look, I think that there are alders who are part of city council who can attest to other styles of leadership. Mine is very much open and welcoming, loving and supportive, but do I have firm positions? Yes. Do I disagree with people? Yes. But those disagreements do not prevent us from coming together to put forth a budget that reflects the hopes and aspirations and the values of the people of Chicago. And so I'm very much confident that this process will continue, as I said earlier, to engender more confidence in city government as a whole. To see this debate happen out loud in this way, where you all get to provide as much attention to these details like you've never have probably in the past 30, maybe more years. That's a good thing for Chicago. There are people who are coming up to me when I'm at various events, and they talk to me about youth employment. They talk to me about community safety. They talk to us about mental and behavioral health. But they also talk about just the structural damage that has existed. They also talk to me about making sure that we remain open for business, but not selling out our soul in this city. So business communities, community-based organizations, all different groups have come together and said, look, we believe that this budget has to begin to set a different tone and a different tenor for the people of Chicago. And I believe this collaborative approach has certainly opened up a wave of that type of collaboration.
Just to follow up on Quinn's question, did you make a commitment to Alderman Daniel Espada to find funding for the Plow the Sidewalks initiative in the coming year?
There are a number of people who have brought a plethora of ideas to my administration, and we're going to continue to listen to those ideas to build a budget that reflects the values of the people of Chicago. The response to the structural damage that we inherited also continues to make the necessary investments that the people of Chicago need.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
You just spoke about how your leadership style is open and loving. There are several aldermen that has say that you have not spoken to them during this entire budget process. I talked to one alderman yesterday that said you haven't even talked to that person in over a year. So how do you define collaboration?
Well, collaboration is defined in multiple ways. One, in this process, we had a brand new process of budget tiers, where we have different alders from different respective perspectives on city council that have been a part of this initial process. We've had multiple community meetings all over the city of Chicago to get feedback from folks. My staff has reached out and has communicated with every single alder. We continue to collaborate and reach out to alders. Every time there is a different proposal, we're reaching out to alders to get and gain their perspective of those particular proposals. We don't get this process done if we're not engaging with everyone, not just alders, labor, business leaders. You all have reported multiple times on different particular groups that have been for and against different ideas, right? So we continue to hear from everyone. So my style is very much open and loving, and whomever you spoke to, I trust that my team has spoken to, and I get a report out from our budget team as well about the engagements that we've had around alders. I will say this last part, and I hope I don't upset anyone on this stage. There are alders that have spent 2-3 hours on the phone with my team. Our folks are here. I know this is not going to sound very pro-labor, but our folks are working to midnight in some cases. So we're speaking to everybody, I can assure you that.
With your team or you?
It's a combination of both, right? I speak to members of the city council. I speak to members in the community. I speak to labor leaders. My team speaks to folks. It's 50 alders. There's not an alder that doesn't have access to me or my team, not one. And we have spoken to all of them.
And given the fact that this budget was delayed, and also the fact that you called a vote today and didn't have the votes, do you have any regrets on the way that you've handled this budget process?
Look, this is a collaborative process. That is what the people of Chicago want. And I know if you're asking me if this is an opportunity to demonstrate that we're doing things differently, absolutely this is an opportunity for us to demonstrate that we're doing it differently. I actually appreciate the fact that we have alders who have said to me repeatedly, because I'm sure you spoke to many of them, they'll tell you that they weren't necessarily engaged by other administrations. They'll tell you that. And some of them have been here for years, right? So, look, there are folks who are committed to working hard this weekend. And the folks who are standing alongside of me today, along with every single alder, I know they're committed to collaborating and coming together to put forth a balanced budget that reflects the values of the people of Chicago.
Mayor, on a different topic, you have until Monday to appoint or to nominate 10 more school board members. Do you have them? Are they ready to go?
They are. You coming Monday? All right.
A lot of news on Monday.
Okay.
Has the CTU president, Stacey Davis Gates, been interviewing or in on interviews with some of these potential members with you? And is that appropriate given that they're going to be approving the union contract?
I don't take any interviews with board members and the CTU. We don't do that. Now, look, there are people that the CTU and other folks, and not just the CTU, but there are alders that have also endorsed individuals, and they would like for them to be appointed as well. Trust me, there are state officials that want people to be appointed. We're going through a very deliberate process to make sure that the balance of the diversity of our city is met in this new, exciting opportunity for the people of Chicago, where we now have expansive democracy. But my decision to appoint members to the Board of Education are strictly tethered to my vision for our public schools. And my vision for public schools is that every single child in this city has an opportunity to go to a fully funded, well-resourced public neighborhood school. That's the goal. And that is the focus that everybody should have in this moment.
You're saying the CTU president has not had any role in interviewing
if the CTU talks to people, that's well within their rights. I'm saying that there are state reps, state senators, there are business leaders that have expressed support for various candidates. Let me just say this. There are more people who are interested in the Board of Education in the history of the Board of Education. And you've talked to them, right? You know there are business leaders that want people on the Board of Education. You know that, right? Because they actually funded them. You understand, right? And so there are a number of people who have a vested interest one way or the other in our public education system. Here's what I'm saying, though. If there's one thing that I want you to get out of this moment is that I have a responsibility as someone who has benefited from public education, who's someone who has taught in our schools here in Chicago, someone who sends their children to the public schools in Chicago. I know exactly what parents are experiencing right now. There's a level of anxiety that parents have because the system has not been stabilized in a way that gives them confidence that their child will go to a fully resourced school within their neighborhood. This mayor, this parent, this fellow educator recognizes those hopes and dreams. This board will deliver on behalf of the people of Chicago, not any one special interest group. I have one assignment, and that is to ensure that every single child has access to a fully funded public education system that they can walk to. And that's what we're going to deliver on behalf of the people of this city.
Hey, Mayor, how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful.
Good. I wanted to ask a follow-up question about the public health and safety budget amendment, as well as the push from the organizing community for the pilot program. Do you see these opportunities as ways to close the city's budget, address the city's budget challenges?
Well, thank you for that question. Do I see the pilot program as an important part of this discussion? Absolutely. As I've said, I'm open to all of the ideas that have come through. I've spoken to the advocates. I've spoken or communicated with our, institutions of which this pilot program relates to. I know that there are some other cities that have done this payment in lieu of taxes, particularly at a time of financial need. And as far as, amendments, we're going to continue to receive amendments and ideas from a plethora of amount of people, and all is being considered in this moment.
Okay, and I have a follow-up. Alder Carlos Ramirez-Rosa said he's never seen such a concerted effort from the council to cut vital social programs and neighborhood services. Is there a division between progressive alders and conservative alders? Are progressive alders, shifting to become more conservative?
That's a very fascinating question. If you're asking me if there are disagreements on city council, yes, there are disagreements. Are they disagreements that any different than any other time? It might be a little bit louder, but you also get that noise when the Cubs and the Sox play together. It's just the way Chicago is. We're going to be fine. Whether it's Alderman Ramirez Rosa or even the fact that Alders, Bill, and Riley are calling for the closures of police vacancies. I don't even have to look to my left to find out if that's something, and we don't negotiate in public, but I am pretty certain that Alders, Bill, and Riley's idea to close police vacancies, I'm pretty sure that they would have a supportive voice in Carlos Ramirez Rosa. But we don't negotiate publicly.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
If the city can't reach a budget deal by December 31st, that potentially means that 30,000 city workers wouldn't know where their next paycheck was coming from and could have trouble paying their rent and their mortgage. I imagine that makes for a pretty tough holiday season for those employees. Whose fault is it that they are now facing that? And what would you say to them as they grapple with those worries?
Look, I'm going to continue to work with City Council. We're working together to pass a budget by the end of this year. I am convinced that every single alder wants that to happen. I'm convinced of that. And again, I can't, state enough, how impressive as well as relatable the City Council has been in this moment. There is a real commitment to respond to the structural damage. As Jill Jarowski just indicated, we've received, credit upgrades primarily because we've demonstrated that we're going to be responsible with our budget and we're going to, respond to our obligations. As far as the workers of this city, I am so grateful that the people of Chicago have such a skilled labor force. And that level of anxiety, I do know it's real. Look, we all have a shared responsibility in this moment. I have a responsibility. City Council has a responsibility. Nobody in city government wants to see thousands of workers without a paycheck and millions of residents without city services. So we're going to work hard this weekend. I'm giving the people of Chicago my word that I'm going to do everything in my power to ensure that this budget reflects the values of this city.
This week, the federal judge overseeing the consent decree case said that she found the pace of reforms unsatisfying. That's the first time she's criticized the city in public. Do you share that opinion? And what will you do differently in 2025 than you did in 2024 to accelerate the pace of that effort?
Well, look, constitutional policing, yes, is the goal, and it reflects what the people of Chicago want. I do know that, the superintendent and his team have been working very hard to meet the criteria and the expectations that have been laid out. I will say, look, the process is quite cumbersome, right? There are a number of tiers within each division that has to be satisfactory over the course of 3 years before it gets deemed to be ultimately, rated, the top star. So there are areas within the consent decree where it may not be at level 1, right? But we are at 90% or 100% at level 3 and 50% at level 2, and we're working our way towards perfection to level 1. And so what I am confident in is that there is a commitment to not just simply acquiesce, but demonstrate a real commitment to constitutional policing. What am I going to do? I'm going to continue to work with our superintendent and the entire team, as well as our attorney general and everyone else involved, to ensure that constitutional policing is actually realized and that we do move with some expediency. That's why with more detectives, I promised more detectives by the end of my first term. We expedited that process. By the end of the year, we'll have more detectives. Solving crime is a part of what the consent decree is calling for. We have better technology. In a couple of weeks, we'll have all 3 helicopters, in our possession. So, I know maybe the running theme is, Mayor, how optimistic are you even after 18 months of serving in this capacity? I'm still very much optimistic that a better, stronger, safer Chicago is possible.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
Jim Talamonte with Center Square.
Okay, you're new here?
I haven't been here in a long time.
Okay,
so.
well, welcome back.
Thank you. Have you talked with President Preckwinkle about either shared resources or just budget practices that she employs? Just again, as a kind of expand the collaboration.
Yeah, well, certainly President Preckwinkle is very familiar with this body of government. She served here, was it 19 years old? I think Burnett was around at that time. Not the whole time. 19 years or so, and of course her leadership at the county level has been remarkable. Interesting too, though, no. So we speak on a bi-weekly basis about a number of things, but if you go back and look at some of her initial budgets, she certainly can attest to how arduous this process can be, especially when you're transforming a body of government. And you saw that play out in the forest preserves. You saw that play out in our county health system. You saw that play out in our morgue. I mean, I think there are some, if you've been around for a while, at one point the morgue was a very, no pun intended, but it was a very scary space, quite frankly. So I've certainly have, seen her leadership over time as an example, and we talk about a number of ideas that have been very beneficial and useful for me. This collaborative approach, not just with President Preckwinkle, but having budgeteers. Our chief of staff brought that mechanism from how state government engages in the budget process. So we are certainly utilizing a multiplicity of ideas from different levels of government.
And at the federal level,
Well, I don't know if you want to talk about ideas of the federal government and budget, because that's a real bad example. But I think I know where you're going, but go ahead.
Would you be willing to potentially collaborate with this new Department of Government Efficiency when it becomes, when it kicks in with the new administration?
Look, I mean, it's going to be necessary that every single level of government show up for working people. Like, people are very much concerned. I think Heather just asked this question around like layoffs, or somebody asked this question around layoffs and whether or not we'd be able to live with those. Finding ways in which government could be sharper and more efficient so that it delivers quicker and in a better way. We have to just keep in mind that it's people who ultimately do that. And that people serving in government, whether you're an alder, whether you are a train operator or working in streets and sanitation, these are people who live and love and adore this city. And so I absolutely believe that collaborating at every single level of government to make sure that people can afford their groceries, people can afford rent, that they have good paying jobs, access to good schools, that we have an environment that, doesn't further exacerbate, the health gap that exists between, spots in Inglewood versus spots in neighborhoods in Inglewood, or neighborhoods on the south side, rather, neighborhoods that are closer to downtown. So we're going to continue to collaborate with everyone who wishes to collaborate with us.
And good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
I want to follow up on the more dashing Craig's earlier question about the expanded programs. Are you holding firm on the expansions of the programs dealing with youth jobs and affordable housing versus holding the line on them in this tough budget time?
Yeah, look, I'll say it like this. There are a number of us who are holding strong. I'll say it like that. I mean, I'm real excited about, the investments that we have made. This came up earlier about, what we're willing to do to demonstrate something differently. and I was sharing this with some of the alders, there are a number of things I can honestly say that when I was running for mayor, I was very hopeful that what I believed we could do, we could actually do it. And I found a number of those areas that I have challenged other administrations to do, and they didn't do it because somehow it was told that we couldn't. One of which is the TIF surplus. Right, we're over $500 million. Is that right, Jill? Annette, $500 million, $300 to CPS. This came up with your question, sir. The number of TIF dollars that we are surplusing back to county government, to our community colleges, right? And I'm only lifting that up because when it comes to our community colleges in particular, as I said, the number one subgroup of registrants are Black young men. And creating opportunities for employment. If we're encouraging these young people to go to school, we have to have something on the other end of that degree. So yes, we're holding firm on job opportunities because we know the best way to deliver a better, stronger, safer Chicago is when people have W-2s. There's no secret to that, and that's every single neighborhood. You know, no matter where I go in the city, everybody is convinced and knows that good paying jobs and taking care of our young people and building affordable homes, that is the answer. You know, Alder Fuentes is here, and I moved out of the 26th ward and I live in Austin now. And good thing, because it would have been very awkward if we were running against each other for Alder there. So you're welcome, Alder Fuentes. But when you talk about gentrification in her community, where you have individuals who've been there second, now 3 generations, are having a tough time affording to live in those communities. So when I say holding strong, it's not just me. It's folks who recognize as the development happens in the 3rd ward, 27th ward, we want to make sure that the development happens and it allows our people to continue to still live there. And one of the opportunities to expand Malcolm X College is in the 27th ward, building more affordable homes, and opportunities for grocery in the 3rd ward. I mean, these are the ideas that people are putting forward, and they ultimately they build jobs and they build the economy. And so there is very much a commitment to hold firm and strong and steady, because these investments actually matter.
And following up, how well do you think these kinds of ideas are being communicated to the public? I've had more than one alderperson on your side, people who were definite yes votes for this budget, are definite yes votes, still saying that we're having trouble selling this to the public because we're doing our best, but the mayor is not as much out there showing people how these kinds of investments, the needs for the property tax, are going to be a benefit to them.
Well, I can tell you our team has been working around the clock to talk to people, to engage with people, around these investments. And we're going to continue to lift up, the examples of our investments and how it's building our communities. I'll repeat it one more time. Again, Austin neighborhood has seen a decline in violent crime. And it is the neighborhood where most of the young people who receive summer jobs, we had the largest percentage of Austinites with summer jobs. So there is a connection there, and more people will begin to see and experience that. Look, I'll just say this. For the people of Chicago, I know there's a lot of noise out there. There are people who are yelling back and forth about things that perhaps, in the past we never talked about, and what you have in this moment is an opportunity to just quiet the noise, give people the perspective that they want, and that perspective is pretty simple. We're going to invest and we're going to protect people. We're going to protect jobs. We're going to protect our education institutions, community colleges, our K-12. We're going to protect people's right to be able to afford to live in this city, right? It's getting way too expensive. When I purchased our home, almost 17 years ago now, we needed 2 government programs to help us with that. And between my wife and I, we had 6 degrees. And, a few years later on our same block, there are homes that are going for $450,000, $500,000. And we're going to do something about that. And I'm confident that this collaborative approach that we're all taking is going to open us up for greater opportunities to collaborate in the future to make those critical investments so that people can really begin to experience it and feel them even through the noise.
Hi, Mayor.
Hey.
On the idea of cutting police vacancies, I have this question and a follow-up.
Okay.
Did you consider that in your initial budget proposal, and why or why not?
Well, we did talk about vacancies, right? I believe in the initial proposal, we did have vacancies that we closed, right? We shut down. So we've always been, very clear about our willingness to do this. In terms of this particular proposal that's coming from Alders, Bill, and Riley specifically, again, it's something that we will consider like all the other solutions that have potential.
And have you had any conversations with your police superintendent, Larry Snelling, about that, or with the FOP? Do you foresee any pushback from either of those parties?
Well, look, these are ideas that are coming from Alders, Beal, and Riley. As I've said from the very beginning, of course, we're going to listen to everyone, and we'll get feedback from other stakeholders. That's why I believe, I think your colleague brought this up, Sarah, earlier, around just how we collaborate with people. There are so many different voices that we collaborate with, and it's not just Alders. It includes labor, it includes our department heads, it includes, of course, our superintendent. So that practice is going to continue, and we're going to have quite a time this weekend bringing people together. I don't know, Vice Mayor, I don't know if you have the first night for lunch, but for Saturday, or maybe we'll put you in charge of breakfast tomorrow, and maybe we can get, somebody who's not here to pay for lunch. We're going to have Alderman Riley can pay for lunch. Right. Oh, yes, please.
Mary Richardson, Corp Counsel. I just wanted to say for the record, as you know, we have a court order relative to consent decree related matters. So we've agreed to restore those positions, and this discussion, we are going to be obligated to adhere to the court order. But that does not mean there aren't other opportunities to look for cuts wherever they are found.
All right, thank you all very much.
Hey, Mayor, one more question for you. Sorry I was late to class.
That's all right.
Blame Metra. There was a lot of talk earlier this week about, just kind of the mayor potentially being a tiebreaker. I think, as you did 2 other times, in the last year or so. Do you think you guys can get the budget to a point where you could be that tiebreaker, and what would it take to get you there?
Yeah, so that came up earlier. That was asked in another way. We're working to get as many votes on this budget as possible. That's our goal. Thank you all very much.